And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. To you it shall be for food. Genesis 1:29. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. Psalm 78:25. Everyday Manna with Lisa.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. On today's program, we're going to be making a pork tenderloin with a cranberry orange glaze. We're going to make baby red potatoes with a bacon oniony vinaigrette dressing on them. Then we're going to be making roasted asparagus with shaved Parmesan cheese, and then we're going to make a cheesy chive buttered French bread. It's going to be delicious, but we're going to get started. Got our oven preheated to 400 degrees. I have two beautiful pork tenderloins here. You know, most of the time when you buy a package of pork tenderloin in the store, it has two of the loins in it. So that's what this is. This particular one did not have the little thick silver skin that sometimes comes on pork tenderloin, so I didn't have to trim that off. All I'm going to do, I've got a skillet here, and I'm going to preheat it to medium-high heat. I'm going to brown the pork, and then I'm going to put it in the oven and let it finish roasting. But we want to just salt and pepper our pork. Let's do one side with just regular kosher salt and pepper. I had an email the other day, and the lady asked me, she said, what is the difference between kosher salt, which is what I use most all of the time, and sea salts? And I want to address that with you real quick because that's a very good question. This is kosher salt, and I'll get some. You see how, if they'll zoom in here for me, you see how thick and coarse the individual little grains are on kosher salt? That is salt that is mined just like regular table salt that is mined in the salt mines across this country and the world. But the kosher salt does not have any added iodine, any flavors, nothing added to it. It's just the kosher salt, just regular salt. Table salt that you do out of a shaker has added chemicals and iodine and different things to it. So kosher salt is mined from the earth. Sea salt is actually gathered from seas, oceans, lake beds across the globe. One of my favorite little sea salts is gray salt that you get. It's kind of a gourmet-ish type salt, and you can get it now in your regular grocery stores. I saw it in mine the other day, and it's just a wonderful flavoring as a finishing salt type thing, like maybe sprinkled over top of a salad or sprinkled on top of your meal. It would not be used as a cooking salt. It's more as a finishing salt. But for a good general all-purpose salt, I use kosher all the time. So we've got our skillet preheated. We want to put a couple of tablespoons of just extra virgin olive oil, which is my cooking oil of choice. I use it a lot because it has a relatively high cooking temperature, but it's heart healthy. And so you can get your fats and it be heart healthy too. I'm going to put seasoned side down in the pan so that I can get the other side. All I'm going to do here, I'm going to turn that up just a little bit. All I'm going to do is just kind of brown the beautiful pork tenderloins in the skillet, and then I'm going to put them in the oven. I'm going to be bringing my water here from my potatoes to a boil, so I'm just going to kind of turn that on and get a head start on that. And we're going to just brown this. Now, pork tenderloin is so lean, and it's just, you know, very, very little fat. It's an excellent source of protein in your diet without all the added extra fat that sometimes a lot of your pork chops and things, although I love pork chops and bacon and using bacon today. But if you're trying to watch your fat intake, a pork tenderloin is a wonderful, wonderful meat to cook. These little tenderloins will cook up in about 25 minutes, from raw to done, about 25 minutes, because you do not, the days of cooking your pork to where it's just cooked to death is over. Those days are long gone because they've bred the pork now to where it doesn't have the trichinosis in it. So you can go with a medium well, which is about how I like it, instead of really dry. A lot of people shy away from pork because they think it has to be cooked to death to the point that it's dry and chewy and no good. And you do not have to do that. You can leave your pork I leave mine medium to medium well, and it's perfectly healthy to eat that way. Now, I've got some potatoes here. We'll let that brown for just a minute. We've got my favorite little potato. I'm using my favorite things today. My little favorite potato are these little red potatoes. I have scrubbed these. I'm going to leave them whole unless they're big like this one, and then I'm going to cut that one in half. If I've got any little pieces on there, we can just trim those off. These are my potato of choice. I love the little red baby potatoes. Let me get a better knife here. The little ones, I think well, maybe I'll cut them in half so they'll be prettier on the serving tray. We're just going to cut these in half. We're going to just simply drop them in some water. We're going to bring them to a boil, and we're going to cook these for, about, I would say, 10 minutes or so, 15 maybe, until they're tender. This one's a big guy. I'm going to quarter him into 4 pieces. You want a couple of pounds. I've got a big bag here, so I don't need all these potatoes. You want a couple of pounds of potatoes to serve, 4 to 6 people. Unless you're like me, and when I'm home, when I'm cooking potatoes, I love raw potatoes, and I end up eating half of them before they ever even get cooked, so always buy more for me. My mother, when I was a little girl, she got me hooked on raw potatoes just with salt. And the other evening, it was so funny because I hadn't done it in a long time, and I wasn't really feeling all that well at home, and it was late, and my stomach was kind of upset, and I just peeled me a raw potato and put some salt on it and ate it. Love them. I don't know if you've ever tried that or not. Most people haven't, but I do like them. But these are just little red potatoes. They're waxier, they hold their shape, and they're delicious. I love them. They're my favorite little potato. And I think that's probably, well, let's do one more. About enough. I bought a 5-pound bag, and I don't need all those. I'm just going to do about 2 pounds of them. Put the lid on, bring it to a boil, and then we're going to take the lid off of the potatoes. Let's get those out of our way here. Turn our pork. You can see it sizzling away. Let's check it and see if let's give it just a minute more. Just going to brown it, then I'm going to transfer it to the oven. While we're waiting on our pork, let's get our bacon. I've got about 6 slices of bacon because I'm going to need to cook it, so I'm going to cook it in that skillet after I take the tenderloin out. I'm using this over the potatoes. Now, you could, if you wanted to, cook the bacon, in whole slices and then crumble it up, but I honestly find it easier just to do this before you cook it. Just slice it into little pieces, just separate it with your fingers, and then it just cooks up and it's done, and you don't have to hold that hot bacon and try to crumble it. So I always just, if I'm doing this kind of thing in a sauce, I just chop my bacon beforehand. And I'll tell you a good little hint, if you find your favorite bacon on sale, if you go ahead and separate it, if you do a lot of this, which I do, if you find it on sale, separate it into like slices, 4 to 6 slices. Go ahead and dice it and freeze it, and then when you're done, when you're ready for it, just pull it out of the freezer and cook it straight from the frozen state, and it's perfectly good that way. Let's turn our pork. Look how beautiful and brown that is. I'm just going to let this brown up. I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to get the pork in the oven and start on our sauce for the pork tenderloin. I'll be right back with you in just a minute. Now our pork tenderloin, all I did was just put it in the oven in a 400-degree oven. I've got my bacon chopped, so I'm just going to use the same skillet that I cooked the pork in. All that's in there is wonderful, delicious pork. So we're fine there. So let's put our bacon in our skillet and start cooking that. Let's get a little bit of a wooden spoon here to spread that out a little bit. Anything, absolutely anything with bacon in it to me is yummy. It's one of my favorite ingredients. I just love bacon. So we're going to let that simmer. While that's simmering, we're going to get started on, I'm just going to put our ingredients for our sauce. Now, this is a cranberry orange glazed pork tenderloin. And the glaze itself could not be easier. Let me get a spoon. I have got 1 can of whole berry cranberry sauce. Now, you know the stuff that you buy at Thanksgiving? That, you know, it comes in the can, you slice it, and it looks like jelly. Well, this is just whole berry cranberry sauce that I'm using. And I'm just going to put it in the skillet, or in the saucepan. I'm going to turn it on kind of medium heat because I want it to just slowly melt. And you can see the whole berries in there. You could, if you wanted to, use the regular gelled kind and then add some fresh cranberries if you wanted. You know, cook the cranberries till they pop. But I just find it's easier to get a can of the whole cranberry type dressing. And you see that little berry right there? That's just a whole berry. And I like the whole berry sauce. We're going to add to that, we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of just orange juice, just plain orange juice that you buy in any grocery store out there. We're going to stir that up here a little bit. We're going to add about 1/4 of a teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. We all have that in our cabinets. It's just a mixture of like cloves and cinnamon and nutmeg, and it's delicious. So just add a little bit of the pumpkin pie spice, about 1/4 of a teaspoon. It's a very potent spice, so you do not want to overdo it. The cloves in it just really are very, very spicy. I love it, but you don't need too much of it. About 1/4 of a teaspoon is all you need of your pumpkin pie spice. If you don't have pumpkin pie spice, just mix some ground cloves, some ground cinnamon, a little bit of freshly ground nutmeg, mix that together, and then just, you know, use that instead. That'd be fine too. Or maybe you don't like the flavoring of one of those spices. You could add any of your warm, so to speak, your warm spices like cloves or cinnamon, nutmeg, anything like that would be perfectly fine. If you don't have all of them, just use what you've got. You can substitute what you have that you like, and that would be fine. Our bacon is just rendering its deliciousness out. It's crisping up, which is exactly what I want. My potatoes are cooking here. Now to our sauce. See how it's just kind of starting to just dissolve and glaze in there, and that's exactly what you want. To my sauce, I'm going to add the zest of 1 lemon. I'll see my lemon here. The zest of 1 orange. I always get my zester upside down. I don't know why I do that. Just use your little microplane. These things are readily available everywhere now. And if you do not have one, and you do, you know, you really need to get a microplane here. They come in various shapes and sizes. This particular one I find is the most versatile, but I have several different, you know, one for chocolate and just different grating sizes. But if you just only want one, just get your regular one like this. It's useful for everything. Great for garlic, great for lemons, great for oranges, zesting anything. And if you've never zested fruit, oranges or limes or lemon, you know, your citrusy fruits, the outside, this thing on my board right here, the zest has got so much flavor in the zest. The essential oils are all in the zest and the flavoring of the zest. Always look on the back of your microplane and get all that off, because I promise it does stick. So I always just kind of tap it to get that off of there. Let me grab a knife. Take your zest, and if you could just smell this. Smells so good. And just add the zest of 1 orange to your sauce. And then you just want to put that on simmer and let it just simmer away. We're going to let that simmer for about 10 minutes or so before we start glazing our pork. And there's your sauce. Your sauce is done. It just needs to simmer. Let's check our bacon. Cooking away. Now, to my bacon, where's my onion? Right here in front of me. I'm going to add 1 onion. I'm going to dice it. If you have a shallot, shallot would be perfect in this recipe. It's just I find I have a hard time. I love the flavor of shallots, but I have a hard time finding them except in those little teeny bags that have like 2 shallots in them, and they're $3 a piece, and that's just not economical, and I'm not going to pay that. So I just use a little small onion, and it does just fine. Shallots just have a milder flavor, but maybe you grow them and you have them. That'd be wonderful. If you have a shallot, you could use a shallot. If you don't, just use a small onion, which is what I'm doing. We want a small dice on it. Just cut it in half, just like this. And you do a smaller dice on your onion. You know, I think probably half of that. Let's do a little bit more. I don't think I need all this. Let's just do that. Don't want too much onion. You don't want to overpower the flavor, but just a little bit of onion. And then if you can't dice it fine enough, use a food chopper, food processor, or just take your knife, do what I'm doing here, it's fine. Now, let's check our bacon. It's done. We're going to take that out. I need to get a bowl here. Bear with me. I'll use a cup. That'll work. Forgot to get my bowl. Get a slotted spoon or a slotted spatula. Take the bacon out. I need a spoon here. Take your bacon out. You don't want to leave that in while you're cooking the sauce ingredients. And we're going to saute our onion in this wonderful, wonderful drippings. If you have never had a bacon vinaigrette type thing over anything, you're missing a lot. You need to try this recipe. Add your onion to your drippings. That has a little bit of olive oil. Remember, we put a little olive oil in there to brown the tenderloin. So it has just a little bit of olive oil in there. We're going to brown these up. I'm going to take another quick break. When I come back, we're going to trim the asparagus and wrap this meal up. I'll be right back with you in just a minute. And welcome back. Now to our dressing that we're going to make for our potatoes. I've got 1 onion simmering in the bacon drippings. I'm going to zest a lemon. Again, I'm using the zest because that's where so much of the flavor is. This time I'm using a lemon. Just brightens up the food. It's delicious. Let's add the lemon to our onions that are softening up. Then we're going to take a juicer, if I can find my juicer, here it is, and we're going to add the juice of the lemon. Add the juice. Lemon juice is just delicious in any kind of dressing. All right, stir that up. I'm going to add to that, because I need just a touch more, I'm going to add a couple of more tablespoons of olive oil, because this is really kind of where you want this more as a dressing. And remember, these potatoes are going to soak that up when they hit there. So let's get that out. I've got some chives. I'm going to add just about, I don't know, 3-4 tablespoons of chives to our onion mixture. So you've got 2 different kinds of onion flavors going on in there. Let's add our bacon back in and stir that up. Our potatoes have cooked. They are done. A good way to test your potatoes, let me show you real quick, is to pull them up and insert your knife. And if your knife goes into the potato really easily, then you know your potatoes are done. And it only takes these about 10 minutes. You do not want them mushy. I'm just using a pot that I can drain my potatoes in real quick here. And I'm going to add them straight into, be very careful, you want to add your potatoes to your bacon and onion mixture. Looks yummy. And then stir that up. And that's done. Look how good that looks. Actually, these cooked up a little bit more than what I like them to be. I probably should have taken them off the heat just a minute earlier. But that's okay. They'll still be delicious. Look how good they look. And they're done, so you can turn them off. We're going to get started on our asparagus. I've got just a baking sheet that I have lined with aluminum foil. I've got some beautiful fresh asparagus here that I've already rinsed. They tell you to hold it and snap it, but to me, it's just easier to line them up, the bottoms all together, and then just cut about a couple of inches off, because that really is woody and tough, and you can't, you really can't eat that. This is a huge bunch of asparagus, so we're going to just trim up. Oops, there's one that kind of got up there from me. Just trim off a couple of inches, 1 inch to 2 inches off the bottom. Lay them out in a single line on your baking sheet. If you have never tried fresh asparagus, you need to try fresh asparagus. And I believe that's about all my pan is going to hold. I don't save the ends because I find they're tough and they're woody, and I don't like them. But if you want to save them and use them in soups, puree them, if you like them, then you can do that. That one didn't get trimmed, did he? You want them all about the same length, and we're going to just get them out as evenly as you can in a single layer. The easiest side dish in the world. Trim your asparagus, coat it with some olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, couple, 3 tablespoons, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, fresh ground pepper. In the oven it goes 450 degrees. These are medium spears. They're going to take about, 6 or 7 minutes is all they're going to take. And they will be absolutely delicious. And then we're going to cover them with some shaved Parmesan cheese. So let's get these in the oven. Okay, now we've got a loaf of just Italian bread that you can buy in your bakery department of your grocery store. I'm going to just cut it in half and put it on my lined baking sheet. The reason I'm lining the baking sheet is because I'm going to be adding cheese to it. And the cheese will melt on your pan. I promise you, cleanup is much easier if you do it this way. We're going to just take a little bit of butter, and we're going to just slather the butter on either side, both sides of the bread. We're just going to add some cheddar cheese to that. You don't have to, it's going to melt out, so you just get some, on different places of the bread. You could also, if you wanted to melt the butter, you could melt the butter first and then add your chives to it, but I'm just going to spread it on the bread and add my chives over top. To tie in the flavors of the meal together, because you want to do that, we're going to take some chives, which are just a mild oniony flavor. Chop them really fine. They're scattering on me. You can get garlic flavored chives too if you can find those. Those are yummy. Add just a little bit of chive to the bread. Just a little bit. You don't want much. Then take some cheddar cheese. I'm using sharp cheddar. Use whatever kind of cheese you like. Add to your bread. Yum. You could use feta cheese. You could use Parmesan cheese. You could use goat cheese. You could use mozzarella provolone. Whatever kind of cheese that you like. And just add it on there. Put it in a 400-degree oven, 400, 450, whatever you've got in the oven temperature-wise will work. We're going to put this in there for just about a minute till the cheese melts, then we're going to serve. All right, now our pork is done, and we've let it rest for just a minute, so let's slice into our beautiful pork tenderloins. This cooked for a total of about 25 minutes in the oven at 400 degrees. And see how beautiful, look at that. See how beautiful that is. That is done, it's juicy, it's tender, which is exactly what you want. You do not want dried up, tough to chew pork. Please don't overcook your pork. Now, let's get this on our plate. Well, sorry about that. I'm going to add in we're going to serve this kind of family style today. And don't forget, now we've got our beautiful asparagus here with our shaved Parmesan on it, our wonderful toast, our beautiful potatoes with that bacon lemon, and our wonderful sauce that we're going to put over our cranberry orange sauce that we're putting over our pork tenderloin. Yum, yum. I can't wait to eat. I hope you try these recipes, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.
Thank you for watching Everyday Manna with Lisa. This program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is continually needed to keep Christian programming on the air. Please send your best financial gift to Living Faith Television in care of Everyday Manna, P.O. Box 1867, Abingdon, Virginia 24212.